Have you ever wondered how the Israel-Palestine conflict, one of the most enduring and controversial confrontations in the world, came to be? This profound question takes us back to the late 19th century, a time when the seeds of this dispute were sown. During the twilight years of the 19th century, a political ideology was taking root in Europe. It was called Zionism, a national movement of the Jewish people that aspired to create a Jewish homeland. This homeland, they believed, was to be in the land of Israel, a region steeped in religious significance and historical resonance. At the heart of Zionism was a longing for refuge, a sanctuary from the relentless anti-Semitic pogroms and discrimination that Jews faced in Europe. It was a cry for safety, a yearning for a home where they could live freely, unburdened by the weight of persecution. Fast forward to the early 20th century, to the year 1917. The British government, in a document known as the Balfour Declaration, announced its support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. The declaration, though vague in its promise, was a significant diplomatic victory for the Zionist movement. However, this announcement wasn't without its consequences. Palestine at the time was home to a majority Arab population who viewed this declaration with deep suspicion and concern. They saw it as a betrayal, a violation of their rights to self-determination. Following the Balfour Declaration, the British took control of Palestine under a League of Nations mandate, and during this British mandate period the number of Jewish immigrants to Palestine increased significantly. They were fleeing the horrors of the Holocaust, seeking solace in the promised homeland. But this mass migration exacerbated the existing tensions between the Jewish immigrants and the indigenous Arab population. The two communities, each with its own national aspirations and historical narratives, found themselves on a collision course. This influx of Jewish immigrants during the British Mandate period set the stage for tensions that would soon escalate into a full-blown conflict. This is where our story begins, at the birth of a conflict that continues to shape the geopolitical landscape to this day. So, how did the simmering tensions finally burst into flames? The year is 1947. The United Nations has just proposed a partition plan. This plan aimed to divide British-ruled Palestine into an independent Jewish state, an independent Arab state, and the special international regime for the city of Jerusalem. The Jewish Agency for Palestine accepted the proposal, but it was met with staunch opposition from the Arab League and Palestinian leaders. The Arab states and Palestinian leaders rejected the partition plan, viewing it as an imposition of a foreign solution on a regional issue. They perceived it as an infringement upon the rights of the majority Arab population in Palestine. This rejection sparked a series of violent attacks and counterattacks between Jewish and Arab communities in Palestine, a period often referred to as the Civil War phase. Fast forward to 1948, and the conflict escalates into a full-fledged war. The State of Israel is established on the 14th of May, a day before the British Mandate was set to expire. This declaration sparked the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as the War of Independence or Nakba, depending on which side of the historical narrative one stands. The war was a critical juncture in the conflict. It led to a significant shift in population, with approximately 700,000 Palestinian Arabs either fleeing or being expelled from their homes, and a similar number of Jews immigrating to the newly formed Israel from around the world. In the aftermath of the war, Israel controlled more territory than was initially allocated to it by the UN partition plan. This included a significant part of the land that was initially designated for the Arab state. The establishment of Israel marked a significant turning point in the conflict. What had started as a regional issue, a clash of national movements, was now a full-fledged international conflict. The stakes were high and the conflict was set to intensify. With the establishment of Israel, the conflict was now in full swing and it was only set to intensify. What happened next in the Israel-Palestine conflict? With the establishment of Israel, the region found itself plunged into a series of wars, each leaving its mark on the landscape of the conflict. One of the most significant of these was the Six-Day War in 1967. Israel, in a stunning display of military strategy, managed to seize the Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria, all in less than a week. This war not only changed the territorial lines but also intensified the conflict, as displaced Palestinians found themselves under Israeli occupation. Then came the Yom Kippur War of 1973. This war saw a coalition of Arab states, led by Egypt and Syria, launching a surprise attack on Israel on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. While Israel eventually emerged victorious, the war marked a turning point in the Arab-Israeli conflict, shifting the dynamics and leading to the first serious attempts at peace. The Camp David Accords of 1978, brokered by U.S. President Jimmy Carter, marked the first official peace treaty between Israel and an Arab country, Egypt. This was a monumental step, as it recognized Israel's right to exist, and set a precedent for potential peace treaties with other Arab nations. The Oslo Accords, signed in the early 90s, were another significant attempt at peace, aiming to establish a framework for future negotiations, and granting limited self-rule to Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. However, these accords were marred by ongoing violence and failed to lead to a final settlement. Despite these attempts, the path to peace has been fraught with setbacks. The issues at the heart of the conflict, including borders, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem, continue to be contentious points that have hindered progress. Despite numerous attempts at peace, a lasting solution has remained elusive. So, where does the conflict stand today? Well, let's take a moment to unpack the present situation. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a multifaceted issue with several ongoing matters. For one, there's the issue of settlements. Israeli settlements in territories such as the West Bank continue to be a source of dispute. These areas are considered by many to be Palestinian land, but they are currently home to a large number of Israeli settlers. Then, there's the question of Jerusalem. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim Jerusalem as their capital. This city, steeped in history and religious significance, is a key point of contention. Its status remains unresolved, with both sides holding firm to their claims. Next, we have the status of Palestinian refugees. There are currently millions of Palestinian refugees living in various parts of the Middle East. Their right to return to their homes or receive compensation for their losses is a significant part of the conflict. But the conflict isn't just about these issues. There's also the role of international actors. Many countries and international organizations have attempted to mediate the conflict and have proposed various solutions. However, these attempts have often been met with resistance, and the lack of consensus on how to settle the dispute has only fueled the fire. The United Nations, for instance, has passed numerous resolutions regarding the conflict, but they haven't led to a conclusive resolution. The United States, often seen as a key mediator, has its own set of interests and policies that influence its role in the conflict. And then there's the role of regional powers like Iran and Saudi Arabia, who also wield influence over the situation. All these factors make the Israel-Palestine conflict not just a regional issue, but a global one. It's a conflict that has drawn in nations from around the world, each with their own perspectives and stakes in the outcome. The Israel-Palestine conflict remains one of the most complex and challenging issues in international relations today. What does the future hold for the Israel-Palestine conflict? It's a question that has been asked time and again, with many pondering the possible solutions and the challenges that lie ahead. As we gaze into the future, one thing becomes clear. There is no simple solution to this issue. The path forward is complicated, entangled in a web of historical grievances, religious affiliations, and political motivations. Yet, hope persists. There are indeed potential solutions on the table, some of which have been discussed for decades. The two-state solution, for instance, proposes the establishment of an independent Palestine alongside Israel. This solution is based on the principle of self-determination and the recognition of the legitimate rights of both peoples. However, the two-state solution faces numerous obstacles. Key issues, such as the status of Jerusalem, the borders, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees, remain unresolved. Moreover, the ongoing Israeli settlement expansion in the West Bank further complicates the implementation of this solution. Another proposal is the one-state solution, where Israelis and Palestinians would live together in a single democratic state, sharing equal rights and responsibilities. This solution, though, raises concerns about the preservation of the Jewish character of Israel, and the possible demographic shift that might result from the integration of Palestinians. While these solutions present their own sets of challenges, they illustrate the complexity of the Israel-Palestine conflict and the need for a balanced, just, and sustainable resolution. As we move forward, it is important to remember that the path to peace is not merely a matter of political negotiation. It is a process that requires empathy, understanding, and the willingness to acknowledge the pain and suffering on both sides. In the quest for peace, education plays a pivotal role. The more we understand about the history, the nuances, and perspectives involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict, the better equipped we will be to contribute to its resolution. The path to peace may be long and fraught, but understanding the history of the Israel-Palestine conflict is a crucial step towards it.